Hello, welcome everybody to this month's webinar, and we're going to talk about personal hygiene and clean room behavior. And it's a very special webinar. I feel that the subject matter is really interesting, particularly as we get into the details. And we have a really great guest here today. The guest is from Poland. Her name is Patricia Sitek, and she is with a company called CRK. And Patricia is the owner. She's a biotechnologist and chemist, 9 years experience in ISO 5 grade clean room. She's the coordinator for quality assurance and the management system, according to the BVMRI project of the Polish Biobanking Network. Also a lead auditor in 9001, 2015 quality systems. With professional experience, she started in the Institute of Oncology in Gowitz, and Department of Molecular Biology. And she's continued her professional career working in tissue banks in Katowice from 2009 to 2019, and as an assistant with qualifications related to the preparation of ATMP products for pharma industry, a national patent owner for the PF Gel invention, as well as the International Awards for PF Gel Inc., gold medal at the Interpex Fair in Pittsburgh and Taipei. From January 2017, Patricia started CRK Company, specializing in consulting, designing, training, and quality clean rooms. And from March 2019, appointed as the QMS coordinator in BBMRI.pl project. And it's a Polish biobanking network. And from July 2022, Patricia is active in the 50 Young Professionals at the ICCCS program. And I'd like to welcome Patricia on board. We have a great speaker with some great experience. And I guess from my point of view, I've been working in this space for nearly 30 years, getting on a bit now, and specializing in contamination monitoring. And we always know that people are a big impact on the clean room, particularly with contamination. And we're going to dive into this interesting topic, which has been gaining a lot of interest. As you know, with Annex 1 and the clean room contamination strategy, it's really important that people are considered in the depth that we're going to discuss today with Patricia, who will give a great presentation on her experiences. And I'd like just to elaborate a little bit more. Before I get into that, my name's Jason Kelly. I'm the VP of Services here at Lighthouse, and I welcome you all to the webinar. If you do have questions, please type them in and we will get back to them in due course. We're going to go through some common questions at the end with Patricia. I really want to tap into Patricia's experience. But I want to, get a firm understanding on clean room contamination. We need to understand, what we're dealing with. And clean rooms, when designed and operating correctly, are very clean environments which have extremely low concentration of particles. And clean room standards like ISO 14644 Part 1, they define how clean rooms are tested to verify that cleanliness. So let's consider the size of particles in clean rooms that may impact on the sterility of certain products that are manufactured or the process in these clean rooms. And it goes for any clean room, whether semiconductor or pharma or biotech. And I got a quick question before Patricia goes over her slides on clean room behavior. So does anybody out there know the average diameter of your hair? What would that be? Like maybe pluck a little piece of hair and look at the diameter of your hair. That will definitely give you some idea of what we're dealing with. So for those of you who pulled your hair out, there's a cross section of the diameter of an average human hair. And we're talking about, say, 80 microns to about 100 microns. And there you can see the corresponding sizes of bacteria, pollens, even a grain of salt compared to your hair. So, it's really important to understand the level of contamination we may be dealing with in the clean room and the sizes of particles. Like how many 0.1 particles, virus-sized particles, do you think would go across a human hair with a diameter of 100 microns? Well, you may be surprised to learn that you'd fit 1,000.1 micron particles across that piece of hair. So we are really dealing with small particulates. And as we understand, the main contributor to those contamination particles are us. We are the main contributors in the clean room, and personnel are considered to be the highest threat to the highest source of contamination material, accounting for about 75 to 80% of particles found in clean room inspections. Personnel introduce particles through skin flakes, oil, hair, yeast, and movement, while bringing in external particles from cosmetics, perfume, deodorants, lotions, and clothing, including fibers. So clean room behavior really needs to be addressed. So without further ado, I'm handing the stage over to a great subject matter expert, Patricia, who's done a lot of research into this topic and has got great insights. So over to you, Patricia.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jason. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. So let's start my part of the presentation. Before we talk about the ISO standard and cleanroom behavior, I would like to share with you the information that all of the pictures, as well as the experiments, also were made in real conditions, of course, basing on my experience, but also in cooperation with Bardush company. And here I have put the photographs. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So first, let's remind some gold standards, some gold rules for cleanroom hygiene and behavior, which are in ISO 14644. So there are many things that people should do or should not do in clean rooms, and these both have a great impact on clean room environment, especially on microbial and particle non-viable monitoring. So here are a few things that you can read in -5 of ISO 14644 standard, which are that doors should be not opened and closed quickly, not left open. Of course, personnel should not support material against their bodies, and because it leads to contamination. Should not talk while working, should not allow anything to trail over the product, especially when working under lav conditions. Of course, nose blowing and other activities, like let's say physical activities, should be done outside of the clean room. Of course, gloves should be always changed. Personnel should also refrain from touching, scratching, or wiping any skin areas. It is very important in accordance to, let's say, non-viable monitoring and areas like automotive, like electronic, but also in the viable monitoring, in the meaning of viable monitoring. It's important because of microbial contamination. Personnel, of course, should not touch contaminated areas and contaminated products, materials, waste materials also. All personal movements should be deliberate and methodical. Rapid walking and movements should be not allowed. So it already means that we need to prepare anything, and we need to be prepared for working in clean room. Of course, eating and drinking in clean room is not allowed. Especially we will talk today about drinking water in clean rooms, because it is always a problem in many industries, in many companies, and all personnel should be wearing a proper clean room clothing. We will also be talking about this proper clothing and how to wear the things, how to make the gowning, doffing, and the gowning procedure when we want to move from the clean room. So let's start from the beginning and why I'm here and what is my experience. So as Jason said, I'm from pharma industry, and I've spent a lot of time of my life working on sterile drugs, which were ATMPs. So it was a very special drugs and very sensitive to each kind of contamination. So there were many rules for me And of course, we were working under inspection of governmental body. So everything was clear because, let's say, GMP was clear for us. And we had an inspector who said that, who gives us the non-conformities or conformities for our working. So it means that we had our Bible to, so we could know how to work, how to create our QMS system, how to validate things. And when I started to cooperate with many other industries, especially with medical devices, but also, as I said, the non-viable industry. So it means automotive, electronics, and many others, optics. I realized that there are many problems in that field because it's not so obvious that people there use the ISO 14644 standard. And GMP is basically dedicated to pharma industry, and other industries have their own standards, their own requirements, but they are not correlated with cleanroom standards. So it doesn't mean also that they don't need to produce under the sterile conditions, or they sterilize things, they sterilize their products, so they need clean rooms. But it is also not so clear what kind of standard they should use. So here I compared some things that are very often in my job, that I see very often in my job, and I want to share with you some information so we all could see what are the problems now in a practical way, in a practical part of implementing of ISO 14644 in many different industries. So as I said before, in pharma, it is quite clear, let's say. Of course, there are through, let's say misunderstandings and other things that maybe should be better, let's say, in GMP. And of course, we have our Annex 1 and many other annexes which say how to work in very special conditions, especially for sterile drugs. But anyway, we have also an inspection body, which means that they come to us and they give us permission, the formal permission for production. So yeah, it's quite easy, let's say, to implement those requirements. Of course, when we talk about clean rooms in non-sterile drugs, so it means that they are not sterile prepared or they are not sterilized. So it's under D-class conditions, like the controlled areas or areas where we make the viable monitoring. But for example, we don't make any non-viable monitoring, or we measure the pressure cascade, but we don't measure many other things like changes per hour. We do not make the qualification process. So it's still, there are still many problems in the field of pharma industry, even that they should work in a clean room areas, in a clean room conditions. They try to work under the other annexes than Annex 1. So even they need a clean room area, they work, let's say, they do some things, and there are many things that they don't do in the field of ISO 14644. What is also very important, that in pharma industry there are some companies, and sometimes it happened that when you create the user requirement specification, many people put there the information that, for example, the clean room should be built in according to GMP Annex 1, but they do not use the ISO 14644 requirements. So if they don't put at least 3 first dashes into URS document, It means that sometimes the contractors mislead the requirements and the clean rooms aren't clean rooms. So yeah, it is strange. But according to people work and the practical part, it's quite easy to implement the GMP and to match it to work in according with ISO 14644. What about the other industries? So in the medical device industry, where you have the ISO 13485, it is not so clear because there is no information that you need clean room to produce medical devices. Even you produce sterile ones, or you sterilize your medical devices, you sterilize your products. So the problem is, the main problem, I think, is that still the ISO 14644, SOS ISO 17141 aren't harmonized with MDR directive. So it means that on the list with the standards, there are no information that you should confirm the requirements of ISO of clean room standards. Yeah, but still on the when the audit is conducting, the auditors verify the working area in according to ISO 14644. So it's a little bit strange, but I think that we need to wait some time, maybe a few years. So all of those requirements will be harmonized well with the directive. So the other problem is that there are many certification bodies, and in each certification body, people which are auditors have a different experience in the field of clean rooms. So one of them have a more experience and other less experience in that field. So it means that there are some differences in the field of audits and in the field of non-conformities. Yeah, during, of course, the lack of information in the standard, which means that you need to validate all of your production area, and you need to be sure that your medical device is safe for your patient. It doesn't mean that it's the same that you need to have a clean room conditions. And still, for example, when ISO 17141 was released almost 2 years ago, there are many people that have never seen that standard. So they never implemented it to their QMS system, and they are still trying to work in according to GMP and according to their own microbial limits. So I think that everything should be cleared for the next few years. What about everyone else? About cosmetics, about supplements and automotive electronics? It depends of the standard of production. So first of all, there is no information about the clean room behavior and the clean rooms and the ISO standards in the standards dedicated for these areas. And second, sometimes there are no certification body. So the only requirements, there are contractor requirements. So that's why everything depends of your agreement. And yeah, this is the problem with meeting, for example, the clean room requirements, and why there are so many differences in the field of building of the clean rooms in Poland, but also abroad, because there are no clear informations that you need to reach the requirements of 14644 if you want to build a clean room. Even that the first the clean room, the ISO 14644 was dedicated to electronics, not for pharma industry. So sometimes it looks quite, let's say, quite strange. What about the clean room behavior and personal hygiene and other things like contamination control in the meaning of microbial and non-viable monitoring? So the first thing is that because of an inspection body in a pharma industry, there are, let's say, well-written SOPs. Of course, I think that it depends because there are some companies that have their QMS system in a very high level. And of course, there are some companies which should still learn how to write a proper SOP. But anyway, there are some requirements, and there is a way of making the inspection by the inspectors. So everybody will try to reach all of the requirements, and the SOPs are written, let's say, very well. In case of medical device and everyone else, I say, there are some things, of course, that should be well written. For example, like clinical data, technical data for the product, and the documentation which is prepared for clinical research. But when we talk about the SOPs, sometimes there are few information about personal hygiene and the proper way of working in clean rooms. So yeah, there are still many things that they should learn about. Of course, when we talk about patient safety, so we correlate the SOPs and personal hygiene and clean room behavior with the patient safety. What is very often what I see in my job is that when you produce a sterile drug in a sterile condition, so in A grade and B grade, it means that you are very sensitive to each contamination, to each source of contamination, and you try to prepare your documentation SOPs very well, and you look after what you do in your clean room. Sometimes when my clients produce non-sterile drugs or sterile drugs or sterile medical devices or other products that are sterilized, they say, okay, Patricia, come on, there is a process of sterilization. So even if we want to reach the requirements here in our clean room, we will reach it in a sterilization process. Or they say, okay, we don't need a real clean room with a proper systemic walls and stainless steel, because it's not needed, because we have a lab or something like this with a unidirectional flow. So it means that our product is safe. And yeah, because of the sterilization, because of the final sterilization, there are sometimes misleading of how we should behave in a clean room or in a working area. When we talk about everyone else, the other thing is that client satisfaction and contractor acceptance criteria. So if there are not acceptance criteria, written acceptance criteria, and the only thing we need to reach is to produce a product with final which will be released, and it will be a high quality, and it will fill all of the requirements of our technical data. It means that it doesn't matter if we produce that in a garage or in a clean room. And this is a problem in the field of automotive and in electronics. Of course, there are many companies which do the things very well, but still there are some which say that, okay, we have the technical data acceptance criteria for our client, and he doesn't ask if we have clean room or not, and how do we behave in that production area. Yeah, why is it so? Maybe because when we talk about drugs, especially the sterile drugs, it means that we need to obtain a certificates, and the certificate depends on the results of the inspection body. So it means that the inspection body come to us and say, okay, hello, you have so many non-conformities, so we won't give you any certificate and you cannot produce your drugs. Of course, there is one inspection body in each country, because it's a kind of governmental body. When we talk about medical devices and let's say everyone else, there are many certification and many notification bodies. So it means that there are few of them in each country. Of course, we also can choose some international one, and the certificate depends on the result of the audit. So because there are still no clear informations in the meaning of ISO 13485 for medical devices, in according to ISO 14644 and ISO 9001 and VDA and many other, it means that there can be some let's say misunderstanding between each certifications body and between each auditor during the audit. That's why I think it is a little bit easier to fulfill the requirements of cleanroom area, because it is not so popular for everybody to meet the cleanroom standard, to meet the gold cleanroom standard. Yeah, but what about next? So we mean the things that are related to cleanroom behavior and personal hygiene. So what is my experience is that in pharma, of course, in medical devices also, and in, let's say, in everyone else also, external and internal trainings are required. So we need to do especially internal trainings because we need to improve our working and that our product is safe. But what is very important is that during the inspection, the internal and external trainings in the case of cleanroom behavior are verified very well by the inspection body. And it is required also to have an external trainings for pharma industry. And if we talk about medical devices and other, it depends. It depends because if we prove that we meet the requirements of cleanroom, so we make the microbial monitoring and we have a historic data, and we make the non-viable monitoring and we have a historic data, and we prove that our way of working is okay, sometimes it is not verified well if everybody well trained well for cleanroom working. In let's say in everyone else is the worst case. Of course, in the donning and doffing qualification required microbial and particle monitoring, and and other things that we need to do to improve our contamination control strategy is well done in the case of pharma, because we need to do that because GMP requires that. So as SOPs and other things that we do in cleanroom are well described. In the medical device, because we don't have any requirements and any linking between the medical device standard and ISO 14644 standard, there are no requirements for the rules of microbial and particle monitoring in clean rooms. and there are no gold rules for donning and doffing procedure, and no rules for gowning procedure, and how should we look in clean room. So we make it by ourselves. Sometimes we try to reach the GMP requirements, but if we don't want to do that, because we are able to not to do that, it means that we are trying to find our own requirements, let's say, our own way to meet the requirements, but not the requirements of 14644, but to the requirements of ISO medical device standard. So there are many differences between the companies. One of them meet the requirements of from GMP. Some of them make their own microbial and particle limits. Now, when the 17141 standard was released, it is much easier to tell people that you need to stop here and verify the standard because it's needed in your job. Because in Annex B, you have information for medical devices industry that you need to be divided in categories 1, 2, 3, 4, that those categories are linked directly to GMP limits for microbial monitoring, and many other things from that annex is very useful. So still, I think that we need some time so the requirements will be fulfilled by the medical devices industry. What about everyone else? Of course, in the meaning of automotive or electronics, they measure the organic things, but on the not in the air. So it is not important for them to make a microbial monitoring, but it is very important to meet the requirements of non-viable monitoring, non-viable limits. So it's important how the particles are shed, and not always the microbial and particle monitoring is under control and is done. Not always the proper donning and doffing qualification is required. I think that only in pharma industry it is required, not in medical and any other. Yeah, of course, because we are under inspection body in pharma, high costs is not a problem. It's basically not a problem because the cost of the drug is quite high, and comparing that with the certification process, it is quite low, so the cost is not very high. When we talk about the cost of certification for medical device, it could be high, I say very high, and of course it could be quite low. It depends on the class of medical device. Yeah, still we need to spend a lot of money in the meaning of certification. If it's, for example, a third class of medical device, and we need to spend a lot of money to make a proper conditions of our clean room and to buy clothes and other things. So sometimes it is a problem for the manufacturer. Yeah, if we talk about everyone else, I see that sometimes it's also low cost of certification. Of course, it depends, but the commitment depends on client requirements. So yeah, it is so. Okay, so to summarize some things from the previous slides, I would like to tell you that there are differences between many kind of industries, and that if we talk about pharma, it is quite easy to talk about meeting the requirements of ISO 14644 or GMP. But if we look at other industries, especially that which don't have any requirements in their own standard, in their own production standards. Sometimes it is not so easy to find a correlation between the clean room condition and clean room behavior and the requirements and the real life, let's say, because we need to earn money as a contractors, and we need to, as a manufacturers, and still our product should be quite cheap, and our clean room should be quite cheap, and everything should be quite cheap. And of course, we want to obtain a certificate. So yeah, in my experience, it is very easy to work with pharma industry, to train people from pharma, because there is an inspection body and everybody are afraid of this inspection body. So they say they need to meet the requirements. But if we want to train people and work with people to implement the QMS system with people who don't need to reach the requirements of GMP, of ISO 14644, it is not so easy, because we need to prove that they need to do that. So yeah, it's a little bit hard. So that's why I summarized here some photographs. There are, of course, a few of them from last 15 years of my experience, and almost 8 years with working with people. And I made thousands of trainings with people, and the common things I tried to put here, the common things that you can see in each clean room, and the problems that you can see during the clean room behavior and personal hygiene, especially in the meaning of entering the clean rooms. So yeah, I called it what we think we can do, of course, with a wing of the eye, because we should how you see that photographs. It's not often for each clean room, and it doesn't mean that everybody works bad in clean rooms, but there are some things that happen. And I hope that you will enjoy that journey with me. Okay. So first, there are always some problems with hair. And what you see here, it's a little problem, let's say, is a very few hair outside the overall, but and the cap outside the hut. But still, sometimes really we do not cover our hair properly, and we do not remember that if we won't do that properly, it means that it is very dangerous for our product, even if it's a sterilized one, non-sterile, so non-produced in sterile conditions. Of course, it depends on the overall. So the one thing I always say to my people, to my clients, is that you need to wear a proper size. If it's not a good size for you, if it not fits you well, it means you will have a problem with gowning procedures. So sometimes it's not because of us and that we don't want to meet the requirement, or we are not a good employee. Sometimes it's because it's impossible to wear too small size on me. And yeah, this is the problem in such cases. And what are the other things? Is that we want to touch our skin, touch our nose, and always do some things near our face, of course, during wearing a mask. So yeah, there are many people that touch their face during the work and they don't even know about that. So they do not disinfect their hands because they don't know that they did such things with their face. So yeah, what is important in such cases when your employees are quite new, just make sure that you have a supervisor with him, and he will look after him, and he will learn him, he will educate him, so him or her, because it is important to learn some rules and some good behavior. And it's impossible when I work alone, because nobody will tell me that I'm doing something wrong. So yeah, this is the case for new employees, for short time employees, that we need to verify their job. Of course, the other problems are with gloves. Sometimes we don't see that they are cutted, or sometimes we don't put the glove under the sleeve. So yeah, this is very often what I see. And when I ask people why your glove is cutted and why didn't you change it? Oh, sorry. It happened already a few seconds ago. Yeah. So yeah, I know that if we wear two pairs of gloves, so it means in a grade area in a sterile drug productions, or that basically in a sterile production, it is quite safe because there is still second pair of gloves. But if we are exposing our skin outside and we don't remember that, or which is worst, we don't want to change the gloves because we don't want to spend time to go to the airlock and change it. It means that we initiate the risk for our product. So yeah, still we need to have a supervisor who will tell us that it is not it is forbidden. Yeah. What is also very interesting, that we touch our skin. So the face is the first part which we touch, but the other things are the floor and the walls. So yeah, I think that it is the biggest problem also when we have too much people in aerox. So everybody are waiting for something. So there are few people that are making the gowning procedure, and the other are just waiting and looking at them. And yeah, it would be better if there would be 2 or 3 people in a small airlock one time at the same time. So it means that they won't do things like that. Yes, they won't touch their phone, they won't touch the floor or the walls, because it's also forbidden, but it's very often what I see in clean rooms. Oh, and on trainings I see it each time. Yeah, but on trainings everybody are exhausted. So yeah, practical trainings are quite exhausting. So yeah, we talked about drinking water in clean rooms, and let's say drinking and eating something in clean rooms, and of course using your cell phone. So what I see in my experience is that when you work for a high level industry which produces sterile products, it is easier to implement such procedure that you cannot eat something, that you cannot drink something, that taking your cell phone with you is forbidden. And when you are working with people who don't really understand what clean room is, and nobody in their company cares to educate them what clean room is and why they produce things in clean room, they want to take water, and they do that, they take water and take other drinks and take some food with them. And what I do in my trainings and in my cooperations, I moved the doors from the wardrobes, and so I could see what's inside. So if you don't have any doors locked, you cannot lock them. It means you cannot hide anything. So when I enter the airlock, I see everything clear. I see where are the clothes and what people hide or not. So it means that it's quite easier to control the environment. And of course, educate. Yeah, education is very important in the meaning of microbial contamination in that field. Yeah, many other things is the gowning procedure. In my experience, the gowning procedure is the longest part of my training each time. And it takes for about 4, sometimes 5 hours for a group of 10 people. And there are many, many physical disabilities for people. So it is not easy to train everybody the same way, because I love bench and I love to use bench in my trainings and in my work. I try to show them the positive way of gowning with using the bench. But sometimes, as you can see here, it's not like that. They want to put their feet on the bench and they don't want to meet the requirement, but sometimes it is just physically impossible for them. So that's why if you have some problem, if you have such problem in your work, what you can do is to change the gowning procedure, to find something which will be possible for everybody. So you could have one procedure for gowning, not 2, 3, or everybody will do that in a different way. So if something doesn't work for me, I try to find another way. And sometimes we need to move out the bench from the clean room, from the airlock, and just make the line on the floor or something like this, and switch them. When we look at this photograph on the left side, we see the clocks, which are quite easy to put on and to change the boots, for example. But if we wear a classical, technical industry boots, industry clocks, it is very difficult to change them to proper boots, to proper clocks, which are dedicated to clean room. So sometimes people try to stay on the floor with their feet, and sometimes they put their legs in directly into the boots, the sterile ones. So there are some mistakes in this case, but also it depends on some physical abilities of those people. So it means that if we have such problem, we need to think about changing the boots, maybe directly before entering the airlock. If it's not possible to change the boots outside the company, maybe we should do that before entering the clean room because of that kind of problems, especially, of course, when we need some microbial monitoring. What are the other things? Of course, many things with gowning procedure, donning and doffing, especially when we touch the clothes with our skin, or we touch the clothes with the floor. It's the same as previously, yeah. When there are some problems with your physical movement, and you are not able to do the procedure correctly, the things you need to do is to tell it to your manager, to your clean room manager. What I see, or when I learn people how to wash their hands correctly, it is very often when I ask people, do you understand how to wash your hands properly? And do you understand your procedure? And they say, yes, of course, I understand the procedure. And it is very easy, yeah? You have 5 pictograms. And then they don't do that correctly because they look at it and they are afraid to tell to their cleanroom manager or anybody else who is preparing those documents that doesn't work, that it's not working in the case of well preparing for their job. So it means that people try to read the SOPs, for example, for gowning and donning and doffing procedure, and they say, okay, I understand, but then when I try to implement it to their own work, it doesn't work. And they do not have a supervisor. Even the cleanroom manager, I think, should take the procedure, go through the airlocks to the critical area, and verify if it's if this document, if this SOP is useful or not, if it's understandable or not. So he will know, because if he will understand and be able to do that, most of his people will do that correctly. Yeah, but the problem is that we don't give the information to our cleanroom managers that something's wrong. So we still do the same things and the same mistakes. Of course, the problem with the jewelry and the problem with hiding it under the clothes, under the cleanroom clothes, it is very often. So it depends, of course, on the procedure. In pharma industry, it is totally forbidden. But if we mean medical devices or any others, sometimes it is allowed to wear jewelries in the clean room. What I can say is that it is very dangerous in the case of safe work for those people. It's not even so directly correlated with clean room, because, for example, if we work in automotive, it doesn't matter for us if we are wearing something or not, because we don't care about microbial monitoring. But still, if we are working on some machines, it is important that it's just much safer if we want to wear any jewelry in our job. But my experience shows that there are many companies that allow their people to wear what they want to. Still, also the main problem is the watch, because it's directly under your gloves, or sometimes it comes out from your gloves. So yeah, this is the main problem, because you work with your hands. Yeah, so they should be clear. Some things with the sanitization process, so we don't use correctly the sanitization system, the mops and other things that we use in clean room. Even we buy a professional one. You can see here a professional system for sanitization, which is dedicated to class C and D of GMP. And you can see that there are still people who are not using it properly, sometimes because they are not interested in to have a training, even from the contractor, and sometimes that they try to make the cost lower. So they buy only few mops, for example, not the amount dedicated to their square meter area. So yeah, even they have a professional one, they don't use it in a professional way. So it is so important, especially for sanitization teams, which are hired externally by some other contractors. It is very important that they need to do the same trainings as the production personnel. So it will be efficient in a meaning of a contamination control strategy. Yeah, and the conclusions for those 6 years experience. If we talk about meeting the requirements and the percentage of the meeting the requirements, I think that I see that in pharma, more than 80% meet the requirements because of the inspection body. So it is mainly because of the inspection body and because we are afraid about the non-conformities. In the meaning of medical devices and everyone else, let's say, which mean everybody else with microbial and non-viable monitoring, less than 50% meet the requirements of cleanroom standards. I mean the ISO 14644. And still the knowledge about cleanroom behavior is very poor in that field. So it is very it is important for us experts, trainers and other people who are implementing, for example, QMS system, not only to learn people theoretically from the books and other documents, but also train them practically and try it on your own if it works or not. So it will be easier to implement. Yeah. And I think that it is the end of my presentation. Hopefully it wasn't too long. I don't know, but yeah, almost 1 hour or even more. So I would like to, I would like to thank you all for your attendance and for being here. And hopefully you liked the webinar. And if you have some questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
It's great, Patricia. I really enjoyed the overview and your experience in the clean room and training people. It's extremely important. Myself, I've spent a lot of time in clean rooms and observed many problems with people within the clean room generating the contamination. There's even people were dancing in the clean rooms and making TikTok videos and stuff like that. So it really shows lack of management in maintaining those processes for clean room behavior.
Yes, you're right. And I think that it's always because there is no leader who will who I can follow, you know. If somebody will explain me why I work in clean room and why I do such things, maybe it would be better for me to understand why I need to meet all those requirements. When I work with people, the things I see is that they go to their work just to do their job. And it doesn't matter if it's in clean room or outside the clean room, they are just doing their job. So I see and I understand that they are not motivated well to do the good clean room behavior and to meet the standard, because sometimes they don't know what is the end product, you know, and sometimes they produce something and then they don't know, then they don't realize that it is a part, for example, for a large medical device system which will rescue somebody else or maybe them in a case of some illness. So if they would know that and somebody would work with them and explain to them what is bacteria, what is a particle, how it looks, and why it is so important, even that we don't see that, maybe they could move further. And till now, I see that many people just go to work, spend their 8 hours and, you know, just thinking about going home. So they are afraid and they don't want to wear any special clean room clothes. They want to drink in a clean room, watch TikTok programs and videos, and they are fighting. They are fighting during training. So when I see a fighting people, I know that they know nothing about their end product. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It comes down to the will of management, the clean room management, to
Yeah.
properly train and show the overall big picture of where these products are going. As you said, somebody could be having a heart transplant, and if that product is contaminated with large particles, it can have detrimental, issues for that patient. And the same thing, that same heart transplant patient could be taking some IV solution. If there's bacteria in there, their immune system is already low. They're undergoing this huge operation. So it's really critical that the clean room operators are properly trained on the gowning process, and that it's well documented, even with video evidence, and of course with the microbial and viable, non-viable data to back that up. But the overall understanding of the end product is really a key to the success of proper gowning in the clean room, I feel.
Yeah, you're right. What I do in my job is when I see a fighting people, I always try to tell them that stop now, we will do that easier. I'm not here to train you to meet the very special requirements. I know that you are here only to make your job and do it for money. So let me train you and let me learn you how to do that easier, simpler, faster, so you can do more job and earn more money. And sometimes, it works many times. Even it seems strange that I do such things, but really, there are some companies and kind of industries, especially that one which don't have any patient outside. So automotive and electronics, so they control everything. They have 100% quality control. So they know if there's something wrong on their product or not. And when they hire me and their manager tell me that, okay, now we are making a clean room. So please learn them, educate them how to work properly. And I come and they ask me, what are you doing here, Patricia? We are making good things. Our product is verified by our contractor. It is reaching the acceptance criteria. So what are you doing here? We don't want to train. So if we will switch it to something like in real life, that, okay, stop now, maybe we want to talk about the particles because it is so cosmic. So maybe let's talk about making the gowning procedure easier for you, so everybody could do that the same way. So maybe if the new generation, if we talk about cell phones, the new generation keep their cell phone on their hands all the time, and they look at the cell phone and look at TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and other all the time. So if somebody are fighting with me and asking me why they cannot take their cell phone into the clean room, I always tell them, okay, wait a few years, and when you will hire the new generation, everybody will be sitting on their cell phones, not working. So what you will do, because if it will be allowed now, it means that the next generation of employees will be it will be the worst case, for example, because nobody will work, but everybody will use the cell phones in the clean room. So sometimes, if we want to do the good clean room behavior and people are fighting with it, we try to find the best solution for them so they could work easier in overall, because it is not so easy to work in such clothes. I know that.
Yep, I know that myself. I've worked 12-hour shifts, longer sometimes, and it is pretty uncomfortable. And it's not the best environment. But basically, I think this comes down to the management and the will of the management to enforce their procedures and ensure that the employees in the clean room are behaving correctly. Because overall, this leads on to the contamination. In this slide here, we have, someone that's actually gowned up correctly. The face mask is on, there's no sign of the hairnet, gloves around the sleeves. And this person is actually taking some samples in the cleaning using a particle counter. So it's, you need to understand that your behavior, your lack of gowning, will contribute greatly to the data that's you're collecting in your cleaning. Like you need to use your particle counters. In the background, we have filling machine, which have some more remote particle counters, some air sampling going inside that grade A environment where the product is filled into vials. So ensuring that your behavior around these type of monitoring points, you're not over-influencing the data. It's extremely important because when we come back to the contamination control strategy that we're all aware of now, like next August, next month, will be the full implementation of Annex 1, which came out last year. So, and part of that will be continuous viable monitoring. So we're going to be monitoring during the whole process. And that's becoming, a lot of companies are realizing, oh, we definitely have to put better procedures in place, train our people even more on that requirement alone. But overall, the contamination control strategy is going to be taking data from multiple areas around your clean room. And the clean room operators are one of those data points. And their behavior is going to be even more under scrutiny. I can definitely see a correlation using cameras and monitoring systems to verify behavior. If you do get a spike of particles in a sampling location, the cameras can pinpoint in and even look and see what's happening. And 9 times out of 10, it's the operator behavior that will trigger those particle spikes. For example, if a vial was to break inside that filling line, they pull back the cabinet, pull out the vial, you're going to generate a lot of particles. So I guess what I'm saying is it makes the root cause analysis a lot easier when you do have those visualizations. And then you can actually point out to some cleanroom operators the lack of their following the procedures and retraining. And then you can also document repeat offenders, that are consistently not following the process. So I'm going to move on to our Q&A session. We're going to, final part of today's webinar, we're going to go through some questions and answers. So first question for Patricia, and these are the most common questions. What is the main problem in meeting the requirements of ISO 14644 in the medical devices and other industries?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. And so let's talk about this first question. The main problem in meeting the requirements for industries other than pharma and let's say electronics, for which the ISO was dedicated, is that there is no direct linking between the production standard and the clean room standard. So the main thing is that we all need to work on putting the requirements of ISO 14644 standard to other standards, to other production standards. What happened, for example, in pharmacopoeia for hospital pharmacy, for many years, there were no requirements for hospital pharmacy in the case of GMP. And in Poland, I work with hospital pharmacy for 7 years also now. And when I started to cooperate, I was called like, I'm an alien, I'm a stranger, and I should go out from the room because my presentation is totally exotic, let's say, because they don't need clean room, because they are not producing drugs, because they are not real pharma industry. And it took a few years, so the standards changed, and they changed in the way of GMP requirements, and everything from the GMP was put it there to pharmacopoeia. So now when we create hospital pharmacies, especially for steroid drugs, it means that we need to do that in according to GMP. and it's the same. If we will work on implementing this requirement to other production standards, it will be everywhere it will be the same. So yeah, this is important.
Yeah, so it's definitely an area where traditional, even the operating theaters in hospitals, they they have a problem where the standards aren't guiding them in proper behavior within the operating theaters, and what's happening. A lot of patients are getting acquired, HAIs, infections from the process, because even the air system is coming down and the turbulent air is hitting off the ground, and any bacteria or anything else on the floor is being dumped back onto the patient on the operating table. And that's a big area now where we have a lot of interest. In fact, I've been talking with some organizations in the hospital industry. We're very big over in Europe, in the Netherlands, because the regulators came in and required that the operating theaters were monitored before each operation to verify they are suitable and meeting the cleanliness classes.
Yeah.
Going to move on to question 2. How can we achieve compliance with the requirements of the standard in your daily work?
Yeah, well, how can we achieve the compliance of the standards? The first thing is that we need to train hard. So we need to train regularly. And we need to have somebody, let's call him supervisor, who will show us what to do and take care of us in each step of our daily routine. And what I also, and I always and also say to my clients during trainings, when you see something, you take it, you use it, you do it. So if you want me to make the gowning procedure properly, in a proper way, I need to have some slide or some piece of paper or which are see the scan of my gowning procedure. If you want me to disinfect my hands or disinfect the clean room areas, I need to, the disinfectant should be near me so I can take it easily. And I think that this is the point. When we do the same things regularly, have a supervisor, and just not try to remember everything from SOP, but have some examples, some slides, some papers, and that we see the things that we should use. This is all for me.
Yeah. Okay, good answer. Question number 3 is, why is it forbidden to drink water in the clean room?
Yeah, this is the main problem and the biggest problem, I think.
Now, obviously, people are going to get thirsty. I remember myself when I worked in semiconductor 12-hour shifts. It would be nice to have somewhere local to have a drink.
Yeah, but the case is that of course, when you produce the semiconductors or other things, you always say, oh, I don't need bacteria. Oh, I don't care about microbial monitoring. What are you talking about? The bacteria and other viable things in my clean room, they doesn't matter because I produce something which is directly related to particles. But still, we don't. We forget that particles are viable and non-viable, and in each product, even that semiconductor or any others, the viable things on the products are also under the quality control, and we need to meet the requirement of our technical data in the meaning of viable parts, viable products on our viable things, materials on our product. So this is the first thing. And the second one is that if we talk about viables and microbe carrying particles which can aggregate and carry the microbes to some other places. It means also that if we drink water or any other drinks in clean room, or we eat something, we just spread the aerosol from our mouth. So we can move with this aerosol many other particles, viable and non-viable, to our product. So this is the point, that it is forbidden because still it is a part of contamination control strategy, and to make our product safe in the meaning of microbial where it is needed, and in the meaning of also non-viable like VDA, and technical cleanliness, and also in the meaning of electronic other, it is also very important. So yeah.
But just getting back to the electronics, like they're down to line widths of about 5 nanometers now, and it's just to put that into context, that would take about 16,000 5 nanometer particles to go across the diameter of your human hair. They're very, really small particles that we're trying to deal with in these types of industries. Okay, last question. We have question number 4. Is the bench really needed in the clean room? Generally, the air is the same throughout the airlock.
Yeah, my clients ask me this question very often. Why we need a bench? Well, the air is the same here in this place. So why you divide the place into 2 parts? But it's a very important, it's crucial, I think, for me and for many other experts and many other people with which I work with. It is crucial to meet the requirements of ISO 14644 in the meaning of dividing the possible sources of contamination. So if I have something physical in my airlock, I mean a personal airlock especially, and I divide this personal airlock by a bench, and I tell people that here you can step and here you cannot walk because it's forbidden for you, because here you need to be dressed like you are working in a clean room, so properly dressed, and here you are making the gowning procedure. It means that we cannot touch by ourselves, we cannot spread the contamination between us. And what is very also important, not in the meaning of contamination, it is easy to find if you are well dressed to your production area, because sometimes, especially when we have a large areas and there are many ISO or GMP classes, it's impossible to verify if you are just moving out or moving to your clean room. And when you are gowning and you are before the bench, it means that you are entering the clean room. So you can be still dressed like in the previous class. And when you are in the other side of the bench, it means you should be worn properly. So this is the point that I can easily control, because everything is about the control. So I can easily control if my people are dressed correctly or not, if they are moving between the classes, which is also forbidden. So I can verify that if they are moving between the different classes, and it means that they do bad things for my contamination control. So this is why I love bench. I love it from the one wall to the second wall, to the opposite. So I'd love to close the gate, let's say.
It definitely brings awareness because you're having that clear marker across the room, that the operator has to have the proper gowning procedure before crossing over the bench. And I agree with you. The benches are really needed in the clean rooms to differentiate between the zones before you enter the clean room. Uh,
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, listen, Patricia, I'm going to pass on your details again for everybody. Thank you so much for being our guest here. And your contact details are here on the slide. If anybody is interested in acquiring Patricia's services, you do travel a bit. You're
Of
open to travel.
course, yeah, I do a
Uh,
lot.
I've met you on a lot of different places, UK, over in Turkey. I definitely recommend if you're interested in training to contact Patricia. Her details are there. Also, if you want to get onto our Knowledge Center, I'll put a QR code up there that will enable you to get there. There's more information, and this webinar will be posted there a couple of days after. We do have some good tech papers and a lot of different topics to do with contamination monitoring. And again, thank you all for joining us today. It's kind of gone a little bit longer, but I think that the subject matter, we needed that extra time to cover it. And Patricia's done a great job. And I thank you again, Patricia, for joining us.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, once again for this invitation. It was wonderful time for me, and I hope that everybody enjoy it and take a lot of knowledge from this webinar.
That's
So thank you again.
yep, you're more than welcome. That's the key word. It's all about the knowledge. Keep your eyes open, folks, for next month's webinar in September. I'm not exactly sure what the topic is, but we definitely will get to you. And if you like this webinar, please come join our Knowledge Center, and you'll get further updates of upcoming webinars, technical papers, and we also will be supplying a handout for this webinar as well for everybody that's attended. We'll send you a PDF handout covering all the topics. And again, thank you very much, and stay safe out there. Thanks again, Patricia.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.